I'm gonna call this meeting to order. It is 6:30. Regular meeting of council, March 24th. The town of Smithers, come on in, folks. The town of Smithers acknowledges the Gittimian clan and the Wet'suwet'en people on this unceded traditional territory being play. And the public is notified that the meeting is being recorded on webcast, and notice of which is on the bulletin board of Settings Chambers. And council, we have an agenda with no supplemental. Motion to approve, please. Councillor Raven, Councillor Elliott. And all in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried. And I'll just offer regrets for Councillor Buchanan, who can't be with us this evening. And then first up, we do have a delegation, and it looks like we've got folks on the screen. So welcome, representatives from BC Hydro. Thanks for joining us. And if my notes are right, we have Deborah Lamache and Mark Alexander. So I'll welcome you and turn it over to you. We generally have, 10-15 minutes for a delegation time for a presentation and some Q&A after that. So hopefully that works for you. Welcome and take it away.
Thank you for the opportunity to present to you today. We'll start by introducing ourselves. Mark, do you want to start? Are you on mute?
I am on mute. I was working on trying to share my screen. I'll get back to that in a moment. But yeah, I'm Mark Alexander, project manager here at BC Hydro, and I'm managing the North Coast transmission line that we're here to talk about tonight.
Okay, and I'm Deborah Lamache. I'm the stakeholder engagement advisor for the project. And now Mark will share the presentation and then we'll go through it. I'll do the first part of the presentation and then Mark will wrap up and then we'll be happy to answer questions.
Sounds great, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay, I'm off mute. And am I sharing my screen?
No, you were before.
If I do this, I am, I think, right?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, I will
see it.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, great.
All right.
Okay.
Good stuff.
Okay, great. So as per the introduction, we're here today to provide an overview of the North Coast transmission line and an update on where we're at with the project. Next slide, Mark. So as many of you are aware, we've met a number of times in the past. We're working to bring more clean, reliable electricity to the North Coast. And we're doing this to help foster economic growth and support the export capacity from the port, to help our customers power their operations and to help reduce greenhouse gases. We're proposing to do this by upgrading the existing and building new infrastructure from Prince George to Terrace, and building new infrastructure north of Terrace and in the Prince Rupert area. And we also are keeping in contact with existing and potential customers, and based on demand level and location, we may also need new infrastructure from Terrace to Kitimat and Terrace to Prince Rupert. So BC Hydro, the province and First Nations are working together to plan and develop the North Coast transmission line and to advance First Nations co-ownership of the transmission lines. And that's something new for BC Hydro with North Coast transmission line. Next slide, please. So North Coast transmission line is being developed in 3 phases. The first phase goes from Prince George to Glenannon, and that's about 165 kilometers. Phase 2, which is the phase that passes by Smithers, goes from Glenannon to Terrace, and there's about 130 kilometers between Glenannon and Telkwa, and about 145 kilometers of new transmission line between Telkwa and Skeena. And both of these phases include substation expansions, and these will be done at Williston, Glenannon, Telkwa, and Skeena. We're also expanding the 3 capacitor stations that we're currently building at Saranovich, Pauling, and Walcott being the one closest to you. We'll be adding fiber optic cable or an optical ground wire on the new 500 kV transmission structures. We'll also be undertaking select transmission line relocations to accommodate the new line in areas where that's required. And finally, we'll be undertaking thermal upgrades, a thermal upgrade project on the existing 500 kV transmission lines, and also working to install anti-cascading towers to help improve reliability. So in case there's an incident on the line, we'll be able to repair it more quickly. The little box on the right-hand side of the screen just provides some interesting information on these 2 phases of NCTL, about the line length, the number of structures, the amount of steel we'll be using, conductor length, and other information, interesting statistics. Next slide, please. NCTL Phase 3 is the project that will go north of Terrace. So it will go from Skeena Substation to Bob Quinn Substation, generally along the same route as the Northwest Transmission Line. And there will be 2 segments here, about 100 kilometers from Skeena to the New Ange Substation, and then about 250 kilometers from New Ange to the Bob Quinn Substation. This project isn't as far advanced as Phase 1 and 2. So we're working to determine what other upgrades may be required, including if we'll need new substations. And the schedule, any worker camp requirements, and other details will be developed once the route is confirmed. And like for Phase 1 and 2, we've got some initial interesting information for Phase 3 in our little box. And finally, the last project that we're working on right now is the Prince Rupert to Ridley Island transmission. And here we're looking at improving the transmission infrastructure to the port. And that would be about developing a 287 kV transmission line from Rupert Substation to a new substation near Ridley Island, expanding Rupert Substation, and developing a new substation on or near Ridley Island. Next slide. So this is just an illustration of the projects I just mentioned. So you can see the first one in yellow, that's Phase 1 NCTL. The one in brown is Phase 2, going north is Phase 3, and then the little pop-out shows the work around Prince Rupert. Next slide, please. So the remainder of the presentation is going to focus on Phase 1 and Phase 2. And this shows our leading route for Phase 1. And as you can see, it generally follows our existing 500 kV transmission line, with the exception of right at the east and west ends, where you can see where the red line diverts from the existing line. So we go straight west from Williston, whereas our existing line goes south and then west. And then when we get towards the west end, we follow our 230 kV line. And you can see the 500 kV line is the black line that goes up. Next slide, please. Between Glenannon and Telkwa, the leading route will be on the north side of the existing line, all along this entire route, and that's shown with the green dotted line north of the existing line. And one of the reasons for that is that there is an existing 138 kV line on the south side that we're avoiding. Next slide, please. And from Telkwa to Skeena will also generally be on the north side of the existing transmission line. There is an area between, you can see the 2 arrows towards the left-hand side of the figure. In that area, there's still some areas where we're looking at confirming our routing, one of them being in the Thornhill area by Terrace. And the one area where we divert and go south of the existing line at this point is in the Copper River area. And we've done that to try to reduce our helicopter work and also to reduce new access into the area north of the Copper River. Next slide, please. So as we move to construction, and we're planning to start construction on Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the lines this summer, we'll be referring to construction segments. And these next 2 figures just show the segments. So when we're working through construction, you may hear that we're working in segments J, K, and L, or N and O. And these are the segments. We'll have this information on our website, and it'll be available at public meetings and in other areas. And the little legend on the bottom right shows you that the segments are basically between recognizable points along the line, either rivers or other identifiable features. So this shows the segments from Glenannon to Telkwa, and the next figure will show the segments from Telkwa to Skeena. So this is something, as we advance and talk moving forward, we'll be referring to these segments. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, at this point, I'll hand it over to Mark, and he'll go through the remainder of the slides.
Yeah, thanks, Deborah. And the couple slides that we're going to talk about here, the first is employment, and we certainly are very keenly looking to opportunities for employment to fulfill our needs to deliver the project. Essentially, we'll be looking for that employment to be fulfilled through our contractors, which will be hired to build the infrastructure, clear the lines, and enable the right-of-way. And as much as possible, we are looking for those to come from local and regional hires. We're also ramping up our BC Hydro staff to deliver the project, and we have a number of opportunities starting really right now, and those will continue throughout this year as we ramp up efforts to have the personnel we're going to need to deliver and monitor the project work as it moves into construction. Information about these hiring processes and opportunities will be made available through our contractors. And we're really just in the sort of the peak sort of procurement phase right now, where we're looking to enter relationships with those contractors. And once we have that complete, we'll be able to point interested parties to those entities for opportunities to work on the project. We'll also be having that information available on our website for the project, which we'll provide a link to in this presentation. In general, the construction work's planned to start this summer. That's been our goal from day one, and we look to be on track to do that. And we'll talk a little bit about what that means for us and where that work will be starting. The workforce, as we start, will ramp up. It'll be a little bit slow to start with, but by 28, 29, we expect to see our peak needs across the project, and we're targeting those to be about 1,400 workers spread across that work zone from Prince George to Terrace, and including the line work and all the station work that we have to do. So with that, we certainly have an accommodation piece, and we are still looking at providing and building temporary workforce accommodation to support our accommodation needs on the project. We're really looking to finalize these needs really soon, and in final discussions with nations and property owners in looking to finalize our camp locations, so that we can really focus on the steps needed to build and make a camp operational with a target start in most of these for 2027. So in general, again, we don't have these 100% nailed down, but we're looking at camps in Vanderhoof, Burns Lake, Telkwa, and then Terrace. The Prince George end of the line, we're really relying on local accommodations in Prince George. But we expect these camp needs will meet our requirements to deliver the project based on the schedule and plans that we have. There could be some smaller mobile camps, and we expect that possibly to be a requirement through the Telkwa Pass and in the mountains there, where we have some fairly remote areas that are difficult to access, and they may benefit from a small temporary mobile camp to reduce travel times, even with the camps that we're proposing. But we do expect with this strategy that will really minimize the impacts on communities, including those like Smithers. In addition to camps, we've also got needs for laydown areas and other temporary work facilities. The primary need for laydown areas are their temporary spaces. They can be quite large. we need to store our materials there, which also is, we saw in those snapshots, we've got 13 or 1400 structures, many tens of thousands of metric tons of steel. That takes up a lot of space. Our laydown yards are primarily there to accommodate those tower materials, and they'll be operated by our contractors as they use them as their staging areas to deliver and build the project. So we're working on finalizing those locations as well, and do expect to see perhaps some early site prep activities this year as we make those available for equipment that'll start arriving in 2027. Those laydown areas in general, we're looking for all-weather access, ideally relatively close to primary routes such as a highway, and we'll end up doing the appropriate site prep, lighting and fencing to ensure that those sites are secure and provide a safe spot for our contractors to work from and our materials to be stored. In addition, we've got some other temporary facilities. Helipads is the other one that we started work on our helipad last year, where we were upgrading and replacing existing helipads. And these are strategically located along the right-of-way in areas where we have difficulty accessing by vehicle. And we have a number of those to service and maintain the existing line that we'll be making use of, and a number of new ones that will also be installed as part of this work. Next slide is procurement, and we're really, as I kind of indicated, we're really in the procurement heavy phase right now, and we really in general have two types of procurement on the project. Either a First Nation directed procurement, which is a major focus for us as we're delivering these projects in partnership with nations, and with that comes some commitments that we'll fulfill through directed procurement. We also have a number of public bids. Those are the typical two ways that we're handing out work on these projects. In general, our right-of-way clearing and access work, which is really starting this year, primarily in phase one, we'll be working through First Nation partners to identify the key contractors that'll be undertaking that work and looking to enter agreements with them. And we're into that process now. Our lines work, which is the majority of the line construction itself, we just recently closed an RFSQ through a public process to pre-qualify a small group of line contractors that'll participate with us in the early contractor involvement phase, where we'll be able to share information about our construction needs and schedules and requirements, and learn from those contractors before we prepare the RFP specs that'll eventually go to them for bids. So that procurement piece has started with that RFSQ having closed last week. And the other big piece will be the station side, where we have 7 stations, all of which need major upgrades and expansions. And each of those will have various procurement requirements, including likely a public bid for general construction at the bulk of those stations, which we'll start to undertake that process in 2027. So in general, for any inquiries for people interested in procurement or employment, really pointing them to our website is the key, and we've got a link there. And any public opportunities on procurement will be posted on BC Bid, and we will be sharing as we enter agreements with nations and their contractors, how to get in touch with them, as they will also have worker and employment requirements to fulfill their needs. So yeah, this just in general sort of gives a summary of the work we got planned in 2026, and you can see it's a wide variety of stuff still happening. In phase one, we'll be starting work at our substations. We hope to be starting prep work on the Vanderhoof camp. And the big one on phase one is we do expect to be starting right-of-way clearing in segments D, E, and F this summer. And that's a big deal for us. That really is what we sort of see as the start of construction on the overall project is that start of establishing the right-of-way. And that'll happen this summer in segment D. On phase 2, we're also, for all intents and purposes, we call ourselves moving into construction this summer. Construction will be a little bit slower start on phase 2. We still got a lot of work to do on the study side to finalize items like Deborah highlighted in the route options and the tail end of the lines at Telkwa. So that involves a lot of investigative work. We're still collecting ARC data and in some cases some geotechnical work. But we do expect to be starting construction activities primarily on access roads. Those will continue all through 2026 to get us off to a good start in 2027 when we expect to be starting the right-of-way clearing. So all through these periods, we'll continue our consultation and engagement, both with nations as well as communities such as yourselves. And we do expect to have some engagement sessions and potentially further meetings this spring in June as we move into our final steps and decisions towards the implementation phase and start of the projects. So yeah, this is sort of wraps up the overall schedule. Busy time right now, and we'll get even busier as we move into the summer and really look to starting up some of these construction activities. And from there, we'll ramp up to that sort of peak construction in 28, 29, when we have clearing happening, station work happening, and our transmission line starting construction in various locations. And all of this is geared towards meeting our in-service dates, which remain to be 2030 for phase 1 and 2032 for phase 2. And right now we can say that we're on track to do that, and really hoping that we can stay that way through the majority of this project. I think that that wraps up the presentation that we had, and certainly open to any questions.
Thank you. Okay, I'll just look to the table if folks have questions for you. Councillor Wright.
I have a few. Stop me when I've asked too many. First of all, just I noticed that you were going to be at times relocating the existing transmission line. Can our community and communities along the line expect several planned power outages during that time?
Well, that's a great question. Yeah, we do have a need to relocate some lines. Those are primarily right around our substations on some of our lower voltage transmission lines. We have a number of them around Telkwa and Glenannon. Most of the Smithers area would come out of Telkwa. We don't anticipate any actual community or customer outages associated with those. We haven't identified any at this time. So it's something we'll watch carefully. And even if there isn't outages, we do have to plan them very carefully, because the system itself might be at not as a robust system during those outages. So we do take them very seriously. And if there were any community impacts, we'll certainly be out and talking about those well in advance of anything taking place.
Thanks for that one. My next question, the camps, the larger camps near the towns, are there any plans to leave them up and perhaps be able to be converted into housing afterwards?
Oh, that's a great question, and one that we get often. And I think the answer is likely not. We're looking to redeploy our. Sorry, my audio is a little bit awkward. It's echoey all of a sudden. We're looking to redeploy our, likely planning to redeploy some facilities from Site C is our expected plan, or at least there's certainly a high level option right now. And with that, those are already sort of well into their design life, and we expect they'd likely be finished by the time their tour of duty was done on the North Coast. It does depend a little bit on the camp location. If the facilities don't need to move, yet another time, there can be some opportunities for reuse, but they're really pretty limited in general, and would be unique to discussions with the individual landowners of the properties that we're considering. So I think we always like to picture, I certainly feel like I was in this position for a long time, that we'll have these great legacy benefits that can be handed off and reused all throughout the region, but the facilities just aren't built for that and aren't suited for that, and really won't be if we're looking to use already utilized facilities that we might be considering.
Thank you. And one more, I'll self-edit a little bit, and I'll preface this by saying, you know, I'm pretty excited about this project. I think it'll be a net positive for the North, and all of us will benefit from it. But you've mentioned legacy. Is there any plans for, you know, sponsorships of local buildings, et cetera, as a legacy of this project?
Well, that's a good question too, and I think the short answer right now is we don't have those identified. I think Deborah might be able to talk to a little more detail, but at the moment, no, we don't have those plans. In general, we really like to be able to consider those types of options, but our key goal is building the infrastructure needed and doing so in line with the expectations of our ratepayers, and that does have a cost component to it, and typically limits our ability to enter into any sort of significant contributions such as that. So I think that's our general position at the moment, and I don't know, Deborah, if you've got anything to add to that.
Now, I'd say that we certainly work with communities to identify if there are any impacts from the project and look at ways to potentially mitigate those. But like Mark said, at this point, we don't have any plans for long-term, or I guess as you call them, legacy projects in the communities. But we do want to work with the communities as we advance the project to understand any effects that the project is having on the communities.
Thank you, and I appreciate the honest answer. Thanks.
Thanks, Councilor Ray. Anyone else? Councilor Patterson, and then I'll just keep going around.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you both yourself, Mark and Deborah, for coming today. Like Councilor Ray, I have a few questions. So I'll just list them off and then I can go back and provide further clarification if needed. So you talked a lot about workforce accommodation for future years. So I was just wondering if you could comment on construction accommodation needs for this summer in 2026. Just wanted to recognize that summer's our peak tourist season. So there's well known for being a tourist town. So just curious if you have an idea of what local accommodations might be required. The contractors doing that initial work. And then you talked a little bit about local jobs. Just curious if you have a percentage or a target that you work towards, recognizing a lot of the work is probably quite unique. And then you talked a little bit, Deborah, about it, but I'm just curious if you could speak on the plan for engagement with the municipality moving forward. Specifically, I had touched on the pieces that you had mentioned. So the increase of demand on services like our hospital and accommodations within town limits. So just looking for clarity on what we can expect as far as engagement moving forward. And linked to engagement, my last question is, how do you plan to engage with us on community safety, recognizing that Telka Pass, Coal Mine Road is heavily used in the summer and winter months. A number of individuals actually like to go up to what we call Paradise Lake or Top Lake there in the summers. And then the microwave is actually a heavily accessible route for snowmobilers and people who come from all over the province. Thanks.
Well, those are some great questions. I can maybe start, and Deborah, maybe you could help me out with a few of them. Yeah, our workforce accommodations, we're closely watching that, our plans for 2026, where we won't have camps up and running. We are looking where those needs are, we think a little constrained to have temporary camps built, and one of those potential locations is in the Burns Lake area. So we do see a need potentially to bring in temporary facilities, and those would look sort of like a real bare bones camp and provide just those immediate requirements for that spike that we might see towards the tail end of this year, probably fall, winter. So that'll be our plan if we do run into some constraints. But the bulk of our work on phase 2 is access related and primarily on the copper road system, although the Telkwa system is another one that we do expect to be working at. So we anticipate we should be okay this year, but it is something that we flagged as an area we really got to watch carefully, and that temporary camp is our mitigation to ensure that the workforce does have a place to stay without impacting communities.
And we are at the same time,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, we are at the same time, like Mark said, we're aware of it. We're looking at the options for temporary camps. A lot of the work that will be starting this year will also be on phase 1 in the segments there, D, E, and F, sort of in the Vanderhoof Fraser Lake area. So we are starting to contact some local accommodation providers to see what availability is, because we're aware of the fact that, like you said, it's going to be during summer. We're not the only project in the area. So we're trying to get a better picture right now of what the summer will look, or this year will look like in terms of accommodation.
I really like your second question on targets towards regional hires and local hires, and I like it because it's a question I ask occasionally because we don't have those targets currently, and I think we will, and we really need to work with through our procurement and understand who is delivering these pieces of work and what their workforce looks like, and I think the numbers will vary. In general, we expect line construction to have a heavier out of region workforce because of the specialty sort of niche of that construction activities. Where on the other extreme, we see clearing and access to have hopefully a real high number of regional and local workers to support that work, as we feel and that those resources are available and in the region. And in general, our work to date, our First Nation partners who were really working on that aspect of work with agree, and we just need to work through who those contractors are and then be able to potentially set some of those targets and share them with the communities. Engagement was the third question. Deborah, do you want to maybe tackle that?
Yeah, I can do that. So we certainly will be engaging with the municipality through a number of different ways, I guess, through meetings like this, through ongoing meetings, through open houses in the community, and through engagement with staff, as well as meeting key service providers in the communities to discuss any challenges they're having, anything they're anticipating, existing capacity. So that'll be ongoing throughout project construction. And we also encourage municipalities or anybody else who has questions, comments, or potential concerns to contact us directly in between any of these activities. In terms of the engagement related to safety or planning, I was actually in a meeting where we were discussing that this morning, and there will be plans in place to let people know what's happening along as construction is occurring, and we're discussing the best ways to do that, whether it would be signage, ads in local papers, or how we get that information out. We're engaging with user groups that we've identified, and we'll continue to do that to make sure they're aware of activities that are occurring in the areas that they use. And again, if anybody has any feedback or key groups that you think are using that area, certainly pass that information on to us, and we'll consider it as we're advancing the project.
Thank you very much. Very exciting time.
Did we get them all? Did we answer all your questions?
You nailed it.
Okay, good.
Okay, just moving down the table, Councillor Reagan.
So my question's about the worker accommodation in the camp. Is if there's going to be a structure where the workers are going to be able to come and go, or if it's like a bus in, bus out scenario. Because what I'm thinking is will there be an opportunity for the workers to perhaps explore the outlying area as in our community and perhaps some of our restaurants and those kinds of things?
Yeah, that's good. I think I think I probably need to look on that to answer it adequately. I think, Deborah, we're still working on the transportation solution.
We
That sort
are,
of
and
needs
I
to
think there
come
will
after
be
the locations are finalized. Go ahead.
after the locations, yeah. But I was gonna say, I think the plan was that there would be certainly some of the people would have vehicles at site and but like Mark said, we need to finalize that once we finalize the locations and our transportation plan.
And I think that's probably, I know I've been in some meetings where we've heard from of your neighboring communities that really that had worker camps nearby in the past, and there was shuttle service back and forth to bring people in on certain evenings to enjoy a night out or restaurants. And so I think where that makes sense and where it's doable, we would encourage that, especially if it's supported and by the community. So I think it's an area that we need to do some more work on, and certainly open to having some more discussions with yourselves and other communities in the region.
No, I think that's great because I also think it also lends to the workers feeling like they're part of place, and then that'll also bring a different level of care to the area. And then the other piece I wanted to touch on was I noticed that there is a construction office being opened in Prince George. Is there any plans for another construction office perhaps further down the line, like perhaps one in Smithers or Terrace later on, or is it going to be just central out of the Prince George office?
Yeah, really good question. We'll have office needs spread out across the entire footprint. In general, our BC Hydro office requirements will fill through temporary office trailers co-located with the contractors, likely at their laydown areas. The Prince George office is sort of the head sort of key office for the North Coast transmission line, and will serve the general needs of the oversight of all the activities. We expect to see some bigger demands on Terrace, and I think we'll know better as phase 3 sort of gets moving what those will look like. And we're looking to options that we might have in the Terrace region to potentially have some expanded office space there. But apart from Prince George and Terrace, the other sort of office requirements in the field we'll expect to take place at our laydown areas and be co-located with our contractors' facilities.
No worries. Thank you so much. You've been very informative.
Thanks, Councilor Raven. Anyone that signed your turn? Your turn. Okay. I have a couple then. Some have been asked, and I was curious, really. I'm not sure you've finished the route selection, but when I look at the piece through the Telkwa Pass, and I can see the little blip there. And I'm wondering if you have done the final selection around that bulbous toe, the unstable parts, like what, maybe you could just speak a little bit to that, what it's gonna look like through the pass. And up the top.
Yeah, that's good. And yeah, we had a number of route options on phase 2, and specifically the line from Telkwa to Skeena, and those primarily centered around the Telkwa Pass. And the first one was that bulbous toe section, and that's where we had our existing line that we had to relocate there recently in the last number of years to ensure it was adequately protected against the slide formation there. We certainly had no intention of putting the new line in that same hazard area, and we had a number of different options of how to avoid it. We have elected to really follow the realignment that we did there a number of years ago with the new line. So it'll take a similar. It won't be as pronounced as a toe that the existing one looks like. It's a little more gradual, but in general, we'll go around the top of that relocation we did on the north side and join up on the west hand side of that. And that's, you can kind of see that in our route diagram that we'll share in these slides. And so the end result is the new line will be adequately removed from that geographic feature, and we expect it to be a reliable and robust line going forward.
And maybe Councillor Patterson touched on it, but I am curious as well, what your early thoughts are on how you're going to manage the construction through there, recognizing the amount of recreation access that takes place through the Telco Pass and out through the Copper River.
Yeah, no, that is good. And we're seeing that already. We're already out there doing a little bit of upgrade work on our main access roads, Copper and Telqua. We didn't get much done on the Telqua over the winter, but we were out there working, and we coordinated closely with the Snowmobile Association on access and really tried to minimize our impacts. And we'll continue to do that. We're really going to rely on that communications that we establish and sharing what we're doing and really trying to monitor our impacts and really with the goal of minimizing them. In general, those routes will see improved access, certainly for the period of construction, but with that will come periods of disruption as well. We certainly will. They're public roads. We don't want to be closing them for any reason, and we really can't be at our whim. But we do have a significant upgrades to undertake, and there likely will be some periods of slower travel or perhaps some stoppages as we're doing specific works. But the end result should be better and safer access for all road users. And we're at the end of the day, we're just another road user. We happen to have a lot of a little bit more use than we typically do over the next 3 to 5 years. But we're just another user, and we're mindful of everybody else that's using those roads too. We're not the only one.
Thanks. Just one thing that struck me, and it's on your phase 1 page and the studies. And I just couldn't help but note, but it says helicopter survey of bird's nests. And I'm just wondering if you could speak to that, if there is some way that you can make me understand how you're going to survey the bird's nest from a helicopter.
Yeah, no, it's pretty, yeah, I probably had the same question a year ago, like, what is this? But yeah, if we go the right time of year, which is typically, I think there's a window in the spring, like probably about now, but we did those flights in the fall. After the trees have lost their leaves and those deciduous trees, the helicopter can fly and gather data, and they can do a visual inspection of any large nests. And we've got phase 1 complete, and we've got osprey nests and eagle nests, and there's another one. But the larger raptor nests are clearly visible through that survey, and that helps inform us where those are. It'd be nice to be able to do that for every type of bird. It really is those larger raptors that we collect, but it's a valuable study and one that gives us a lot of really good information as we're planning our works.
Okay, thank you. I guess just a couple of things when we're talking about engagement that would be, I think, of interest to the municipality is as you get closer to making inquiry on laydown sites, a couple of councillors raised, what might be coming into the community in terms of, impact. It's got good and bad attached to it. So it's just good to be as aware as possible so that if there are opportunities for the community, we're aware. And if there's concerns from the communities, we're able to share those back to you as the plan develops. So having as best communication as we can via staff when there's important dates coming up or opportunities to consult. So I do thank you for coming this time. I hear more things when I'm at the regional district table, but I do appreciate having our community and our council be a little bit more engaged as well. So if you could kind of maintain that for us as it goes. I realize the route is going to be going, through from Telqua, but it's pretty close, and our citizens are going to be very interested. Businesses will be interested in opportunity, and residents will be certainly interested in what's going on during the recreation season. So I think we would like to stay very much in the engagement loop as much as possible.
No, and we'll certainly do that. And we are at this point planning to have a public open house sometime in early June. And we'll certainly be one in Smithers, just like there's been the other times. So just, yeah, that information should be coming out in the next while.
That sounds great. Thank you again very much for your time. I've got one last glance around the table in case someone missed something. Okay, well, thanks for joining us, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thanks so
Okay,
much.
thanks.
Good night.
Okay, bye.
Night. Okay, back to the agenda, and next up, we do have a public comment period. So if there is someone in the gallery who would like to speak to something that is on the agenda tonight, you have an opportunity. There's a 3-minute public speaking opportunity for anyone who's in the gallery. I am not seeing anyone look like they're here to take that up, so I'm just gonna move on. Next up then, council, we're at 8:1, the minutes from March 10th for adoption, please. Councilor Raven, Councilor Elliott, any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed, and that's carried. And there isn't any business arising, nothing to be released from closed, so we are up to the council reports. Councilor Buchanan has regrets. I wonder, Councilor Leonard, if you wanted to move up the finance committee, they're there for adoption and no motion, so if you don't mind.
Sure, there's actually one.
Oh, there is one, sorry.
So should we,
Just adopt first.
adopt the minutes? Okay, can I? have a-
You can move.
Can I?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll move the minutes of the March 3rd Finance Committee meeting.
And a seconder. Councilor Patterson seconds. And any discussion, we'll go to the motion next. Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed, and that's carried. And Councilor Leonard.
And then the motion, sorry, let me find it here.
I do have it as on 43 of 304 or 3 of 4.
Yeah, do you want me to read it out? Sure. That the finance committee recommended the council direct staff to prepare the 2026-2030 5-year financial pay plan bylaw based on the consolidated budget as presented. And that the finance committee recommend that council direct staff to host a public engagement opportunity at the March 31st, 2026 finance committee meeting in order to seek public input on the proposed 2026 budget and financial plan.
Okay, thanks. And that was you moving, Councilor Rader seconding.
Yes.
And just for the minutes, that motion could begin that council direct staff. Okay, any discussion?
Right, sorry.
No, it's okay. I've done that many, many times. I just had the pleasure of reading while you were reading, so that helps. Any discussion on that motion, council? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed, and that's carried. Thanks, Councilor Leonard. Councilor Ray. Okay, and then still just in Councilor Buchanan's package was the report from the chamber. And he's not here to answer questions, so we'll just move on. And next up, Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. Just you can see the attached library report. There was a meeting this past week. Was one concerning item that keeps coming up is book banning, to do with freedom of expression. So it is a thing that we have to deal with in this neck of the woods as well. So the next province over, they're having some issues with that. So just trying to be mindful of those things. Freedom of expression covers many different facets, and we need to be maybe careful with what we're doing with literature and what people have access to. And on the front of the report, there is a very good tribute to Kat Moss, the year she put in as a librarian. And yeah, you can see all the programs that the library does, lots of secondary use for that building as well. So everyone's really excited about the future for the new building coming up.
Thanks, Councilor Elliott, appreciate that, and appreciate your drawing attention to the ongoing challenge that book banning presents for us. It's important to be aware, so thank you. Any questions for Councilor Elliott? Councilor Patterson?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just through to Councilor Elliott, if the board at any future meeting has a recommendation or idea of how council can support them in the book banning, I'd be really open to that. I'm embarrassed to say that I hadn't been there in some time, and when I recently took my son there for the first time, I was shocked at the list of books that are banned that I grew up reading and loving. So I'd be really interested in hearing what they think we can do from an advocacy standpoint. Thanks.
Thanks, Counselor Patterson. Okay, Counselor Leonard, back to you.
I have nothing else to report other than there are minutes from the March 10th Minerals North Conference Organizing Committee, which I was absent at. Mayor Attrell chaired that meeting, and they're just there for information. We are totally sold out, and I think we stopped registration about a week or two ago. So looking forward to the event, and it's going to bring a lot of activity to the community.
Thanks, Counselor Leonard. Okay, Counselor Patterson.
I think your worship, but just thanks to Councillor Leonard and staff and everyone else who's sitting on that committee. There's a ton of work that goes into that, so very exciting.
Thank you. Where are we? Lost my place here, Counselor Raven.
So I can just go into my motion if that works for everybody. So I did have a notice of motion, so I would like to move that motion now and then discuss if needed.
Okay. And is there a seconder for Counselor Raven's motion? Counselor Ray seconds. And is there anything you wanted to add, Counselor Raven?
So this initially came up at the health committee meeting. We had a delegation. There is a couple local activists that have been working on this for quite a while, and I have to admit, I'd heard of the Northern Health Connector bus. I'd actually suggested to people when they needed to go for medical treatment. I'm like, oh, I heard there's this great bus, you should use it. And then when I saw the actual schedule, it became glaringly obvious why people aren't able to use it, and it is having a significant impact on seniors in our community. They're the ones that should be relying on it, and there was actually one person that signed a petition. They actually sold their vehicle so they could actually afford to get the accommodations to use the bus because they can't drive at night by themselves. So it's one of those things where it's just a bit disheartening. And I just thought that this would be a great way for us to bring it forward, but also aware that this does not have any additional impact on staff capacity, that this would be a council advocacy letter and endeavor.
Thanks, Counselor Raven. Anyone else? Counselor Ray?
Yeah, I really think it's the alignment piece that really needs to be worked on. You know, unless you have an appointment first thing in the morning, you still have to stay overnight. And then, but if you don't, you have to stay 2 nights, and that's not. Hotels aren't as cheap as they used to be, so I absolutely think this is something that's definitely needed.
Thanks, Counselor Ray. Anyone else? Counselor Patterson.
Thank you, Mayor Attrell. So love this being put forward, but I can't support the motion because it's not specific. I would actually love to see this go forward to our resolutions through UBCM, but ask them with some specific options. So for example, that additional bus route alignment, medical flight vouchers, travel subsidies. I mean, this has actually come across our desk before, but we just hadn't had the opportunity to explore those options. I worry that if we send a letter, we'll just get that generic response back where the minister will say it's really important to us. So I'm just hesitant to support it just because that's the response we're going to get back, but I would be open if we changed it to add it to the UBCM roster and ask for something specific in exchange. Thanks.
Thanks, Counselor Patterson. Counselor Ray.
Yeah, I think we had a bit of this discussion, but if something like this goes to UBCM, it's able to be defeated or be kind of ignored because it's very region specific. I mean, I would imagine the Northeast has the same kind of problems, but it is fairly region specific. And my guess would be that you're correct, that we'll receive a generic letter and then we'll have to follow it up with a visit to the minister at UBCM.
Thanks, Counselor Ray. Counselor Raymond.
Yeah, and I don't disagree. I know that it is disheartening, but I do think this is one of those times where sending a letter is helpful, but this also puts it on our radar where we can refer to it if we do go down to UBCM and we happen to get a meeting with the minister or even have a meeting with somebody else. We see the minister in the hallway kind of thing. I think this is just a good thing to have on our radar. The other piece is that it is growing with a bit more of a regional focus. So I got the 2 people that are kind of spearheading this. I connected them with the municipalities of New Hazelton and the Village of Hazelton. also with Terrace, so it is looking like it is gonna start gaining a bit of traction, get a bit bigger. They did ask if we would, to put forward for Smithers to sign the petition, and I thought that was a bit more of a hindrance, where this gives us the ability to be Smithers specific rather than a regional focus.
Thanks, Councilor Raven. I'm okay to just support. I think the things that occurred to me when I read it is that the other ministries that are key would include transportation. And then it's not a ministry, but the entity is NDI. So NDI has been tasked with trying to figure out some of the transportation, the misalignments that you're talking about. So I touched base there quickly today just to see where that's at. So it's not moving very fast. But I've forgotten some of this, and I'm not going to the NDI meetings anymore, but NDI was asked to sort of look at what are the sort of misalignments or the missed opportunities between the BC bus, the BC North bus and the Health Connector, and then all the transit connections, right? So there's a lot of buses moving, plus what Caltan does through the Spirit buses. So I think this is good. I think I would add the Minister of Transport, because eventually it will make its way there. All of those things are going to be connected to the Minister of Transport, who also is the minister responsible for BC Transit, and we have all of our transit connections. So I'm sensitive to the fact that you said you didn't want to put this on staff's desk, but I think it could use a little, like a little more detail. Or I'm happy to take it and just to do my best and perhaps CC the Minister of Transportation and Transit, Minister Farnsworth, and send it off to the board and CEO of NDI as well. I think there's many people working on it already, so this will just add a little bit to it. Again, I heard noises on this side, so I'll go Councillor Ray first, and then I think that's.
Yeah, I just think that whenever we direct the mayor rather than staff, that we trust your discretion as to who to send it to, and whether you need a little bit of help, staff help. Drafting letter or what have you.
Okay, Councillor Patterson, did you have something done?
Thank you, Worship. Just to say that I would support it, and I Deputy Mayor Ray talked about the resolution. I wasn't speaking about a resolution. I was more the ministers meeting. So if we could make that connection, just to say something like, we look forward to seeing you, recognizing that there is a process that we have to follow. So that would just, I concur with what you're suggesting there on just being a little bit more specific if we can. Looking to explore options, working together, something. Thank you.
Okay, okay, well, if you're content to let me walk through that, then I'll do my best. Any other comments? Motion on the table, all in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried. Okay. Councillor Raven, anything else from you?
That's a very good question. No, sorry, so yeah, I did have my report that I put in. It's actually rather small this time. And then there is also the art gallery works that I would like to highlight.
Thanks, Councillor Raven. Councillor Ray.
Nothing to report at this time.
Okay, thank you. Then under my report, there is the standing committee minutes from whenever we met, March 17th, for adoption. If I can have a mover, please. Councillor Elliott, Councillor Raven. Any discussion? Councillor Ray?
Yeah, I think we said a little bit. It was a very short meeting, but I think it was still worth the time and the staff report. You know, we own those priorities, but if things are moving along well, it's still nice to even have 10 or 15 minute meeting to just look over how it's going. So it is much appreciated.
Right. Wrong way. Sounds right. Anyone else? All in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried. And my activity report is there as well. And let's move on to staff reports. Okay, first up, 14.1 from Ms. Smith on the lease for Enterprise Rent-A-Car. And there is a recommendation. Happy to have the recommendation put on the table. Is there any questions of clarification, or are you moving, Councillor?
I'll let you put it on the table.
Okay. Councillor, Leonard, man, I'm having trouble with all your names today. It's crazy. You'd think by now I know them. So it's moved and seconded, and discussion. Councillor Ray and then Councillor Patterson.
Yeah, I just wanted to, when I first read waiving the 90-day, I was a little concerned, but actually I think when you're entering into a partnership and it's gonna be an anchor of our airport. Especially when they're gonna be providing a little bit better service, more cars, et cetera. And really, we're still protected if they're not meeting their obligations, so there's really no reason that I can see why we would want the 90 days in there in this kind of relationship.
Thanks, Councillor Ray. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Deputy Mayor Ray touched a little bit on it, but I was just hoping staff could just provide a little bit of clarity just for the record, recognizing, I believe there's 3 exemptions. So we're waiving the procurement lease policy, termination notice, and the long-term lock-in. So just if we could just confirm just a little bit about why we're doing that, just so that we're not setting a precedent. Deputy Mayor Ray sort of touched on it a little bit around the opportunity, but just some clarity would be great.
Okay, and I'll just give that to Ms. Smith.
Thank you, Mayor Attrell. This was lengthy negotiations and these were a result of those. So we are waiving the termination for the agreement from 2024 to 2029. Because as a result of the negotiations with Enterprise, they wanted them under one agreement to have better protection for their capital investment, to make sure that both were under the same agreement and neither could be pulled because they rely on each other. Additionally, we're waiving the 90 days. However, there's still cause-based termination written into the agreement. So should they default on any area of the agreement, we still have means to terminate.
Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Anyone else? Questions? I had a couple. One is, I just can't actually remember what's in the building now. Does anyone know what happens there?
It's currently sitting vacant, so that's another benefit of this agreement is they intend to make some capital improvements and use the space.
Okay, and one is just an observation. I don't know that it's specific to this, but it's on page 3 of the report, and it's the utilities. And so we've got the 121 per quarter, and then 155 per quarter. And I just note that will be a lot of water used in an area where we spent a lot of money to bring water services in. I realize this is a fees and charges that we've approved, but I just wanted to bring attention to it that it may be something that we'll have to think about in the future. We've talked occasionally about the metering, all that stuff, but I think water use is something that we probably have to give consideration to, considering how expensive it is to get water in volume once we've gone through the all the projects at the airport. So not going to get in the way of it, but I just wanted to note it. It doesn't seem like a high charge. That's right.
Yeah, I do agree with that, but we made the investment in the water system partially because we had to, but partially so that we could look to the future of the airport. And I really think this is a good beginning for that future. So.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Ray. I think so too. I'm glad to have a long term and someone going longer. This is just a general comment on what we charge for water in the community that we might want to take a look at that. Anything else? All in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried unanimously. 14.2 for Mr. Schroeder, and that's a recommendation on an RFP award for the council remuneration review. Recommendation is there. Councillor Ray, moving. Councillor Raven seconds. Discussion. Councillor Leonard.
I do support the motion. But I just had a question, and it's more of a general question to staff. The last sort of proposals that have been brought to council have been scored, but the scoring matrix hasn't come in the report. So I'm just curious about that and thinking maybe that should be public information.
Yeah, so with these reports, we finalized the scoring. The submission deadline was quite close to the deadline for getting reports together. So it was a very quick turnaround to actually get these reports on the agenda to council. So I think that's maybe where the matrix wasn't presented, but that's something we can take back to the staff level and discuss and follow up if there's any inconsistencies in the future.
Yeah, I just think it's important for the public to understand what we're going through in that process that we're going through to award.
Thanks, Councillor Leonard. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, worship. Concur with Councillor Leonard, my comment was gonna be similar with just the summary that's shown on the page 120 of 304. My comment that I made here for myself is I really struggle with that roughly $13,000 differentiation, just to see that score of the 86 to the 79 with the accompanying summary. Especially with language like the town may see reduced costs for streamlined service through a combined process. I just think perhaps it might be in our best interest to Councillor Leonard's point, just to include that and take out the may see reduced costs. So it's just cut and dry, because I would say that $13,000 difference, it may seem small, but over time, that accumulation will start to sort of make me, I guess, question my decisions.
Thanks, Councillor Patterson. Mr. Dewar.
Yeah, and with the Macy reduced costs, that's one that we were not to guarantee, but that's one that we do anticipate. In terms of the price variance for the different proposals, it's 1, 2 that they did also have to submit how many hours that they were going to be working on the activities. And so what I'd say is some of them were very substantially different proposals. So when we looked at it and we went through this morning, the preferred candidate or recommended candidate came on top for both processes. And additionally, so
That's okay. Happens, it happens. Totally.
sorry, I thought I had that turned off. And so, yeah, with that, when we looked at the overall delivery of the project, we thought that the preferred candidate stood above everyone else, and even despite the cost differences.
Thanks, Mr. Dewar. Councillor Ray.
Yeah, just say both of these bids also attracted a lot of attention, so seeing them scored helps a lot. You know, I actually, the one that was really low on this one caught my eye because sometimes that happens, but they never get the bid. So it says something about that there was other things lacking in the bid, so.
Thanks, Councillor Ray. Okay. Ready? All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. And next up, 14.3, similar exempt compensation review contract award. The report from Mr. Schroeder. Seeing lots of hands. That was Councillor Leonard, you're moving. Councillor Ray, you're seconding. Okay, any discussion? Councillor Ray.
I think the tightness of the bids financially in this one indicates that, you know, council asked for some maybe a bit different things in the council remuneration review, whereas this is something that all these firms probably do a fair amount, so they know a little more about how it's going to go. So that I think that indicates that, you know, all the firms knew what they were getting into with this one, and maybe not as much with the council.
Thanks, Councillor Ray. I just want to say thanks to staff for getting this to us. It's been a long time coming, and that's more us than you. So finally, we're all on the same page, recognizing the time has come to get this done. It's long overdue for staff. So thanks everyone for just getting it here. Anyone else? All in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried unanimously. 14.4 for Mr. Chad. Situation table training contract award with recommendation. Councillor Raven. Councillor Elliott, thank you. Any discussion? Councillor Leonard.
And forgive my ignorance, but when I was reading this, I always understood the situation table to be sort of separate from the town, and that we sort of provided support through staff and time, and so I was a little confused at. I mean, I'm assuming we received the grant on their behalf, so maybe you could just fill me in a little bit more on that.
Through the chair, Council, yeah, the grant flows through the town, so we receive the money and administer the program, so hence it going through our normal procurement process.
That's good. Okay. Any other questions? All in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried. 14.5, annual sidewalk upgrades with the recommendation. Councilor Raven moves, Councilor Elliott, any discussion? Councilor Raven?
Just a bit of a question through to staff about whether we have thought about having, the sidewalk upgrades or the identified sidewalks go through accessibility committee, just to see if they have any feedback on, sections of sidewalks.
Sorry, I had actually interrupted Mr. Dewar, so I'm gonna give him the grace if he didn't hear the beginning of that. So do you want her to ask that again? Okay, Councilor Raven, sorry.
No, all good. No, just wondering if we had thought about, having this given to the accessibility committee just for some feedback. I know staff have their process of doing it, but it might be an opportunity for, just a bit of a different lens to get brought to the table.
Mr. Dewar.
And I'll let Mr. Allen join if he has anything to add, but traditionally that has not been the practice. The practice has been, we do have a assessment review of our sidewalks, and then it's ground truth in the spring just to see what condition everything's in. But that's certainly one council could make a motion to recommend, and we can see what happens. But any additional comments, Mr. Allen?
Mr. Allen.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Attrell, and the accessibility committee is always encouraged to bring any projects that they or any areas that they've identified to make a recommendation to council, and then council can direct staff to consider that in the end of the project.
Thanks, Mr. Allen. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a question. They're spending $293,000 and the budget was $375. So is that going to go carry forward into next year's budget? And we are taxing for these projects, is that correct?
Okay, Mr. Welsh, I'm sorry for that.
The majority of the sidewalk program is funded from gas tax money, so it's a reserve and it's transferred out, so the money isn't spent, it sits in the funds, to be kind of reallocated in future periods.
Thank you.
Councilor Ray.
I hope this isn't getting too specific and into the weeds, but just the small portion from Queen Street to Mountain View Drive is gonna be asphalt again, which is good. Is there any plans to actually raise that up a little closer to the level of the street? It's like one of the very few places I walk, and it's often got puddles and stuff.
Mr. Allen.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Attrell, to Councilor Ray. There will be some improvements in the grade of that sidewalk. This is mostly to reestablish the surface, which is just completely deteriorated. We've had many complaints actually from persons with disabilities on that section and the approach up to the crosswalk by Mountain View. So at this time, it's just to serve that purpose, and then in the future, when a curb and gutter reconstruction project is earmarked for that section, then the sidewalk would be properly raised and then in a more permanent concrete surface as well. So I think that's a project that was 10 plus years down the road.
I think I'm witnessing sadness.
Fine. Forgive me if this is, it's not out of line, but I think part of the reason it's degraded is that it's always got frozen puddles and stuff on it. I just wonder, that might be better to just do the project in concrete. Like if we're not spending the whole money, if it might be better to spend the money in concrete. If it's just a matter of resources, and that's council's role. If it's not, then I'm fine to stay in my lane.
Mr. Allen.
Yeah, thank you. Staff realized the contingency is there. And we've already discussed this at staff level that we could investigate that. I think maybe a council motion would be in order for directing staff to look at that. Because we were planning on keeping the contingency available for, there are 2 other projects this summer, one on Princess Street and one on Main Street for sidewalk improvements to construct multi-use pathways. And we were thinking of keeping this contingency available in case there's some unforeseen issues that arise on both of those projects.
I'm just waiting for Councilor Ray to finish his thought, and then I see others.
Well, I really then if staff feels comfortable that they're not going to use a contingency, I feel they would probably look into doing it, but I don't want to take away a contingency from another project.
Mr. Dewar.
Yeah, just gonna say staff has heard this particular section discussed a couple of times from a couple of council members, and we really appreciate the input. And so with that, we are going to take that input and we will assess it from both an operational and a financial standpoint. And if there's feasibility, we'll look at doing it. And if not, then we won't be proceeding. And similarly, if additional budget is required, then that would obviously have to go back to council. Alternatively, if council really wanted this section viewed differently, that's one that you can make a recommended motion and would have to identify the potential cost impacts for those changes to the scope. So
I'm gonna go to Councilor Patterson, William, all that. Councilor Patterson.
Thank you, your worship. I'm legal to myself there. Director Allen, I apologize because I'm one of those people that complains. So just for council's information, I purchased that house a number of years ago, about 3 years ago now. And seeing what occurs at that corner sort of astounds me. So typically what happens is there's congestion as people come off of Highway 16, they go into the drive-through at Tim Hortons, but that section of road that backs onto the highway is quite short. It can only probably accommodate about 6 cars from where you enter into Tim Hortons back up to the highway. So typically what happens is people who are either driving, continue down Queen Street or turn onto Columbia Drive, they have nowhere to go because the street becomes congested or blocked. So what typically happens if you drive past that intersection anytime, you'll observe it. People will actually drive up onto that individual's property. So when you drive by, you'll notice that half of their lawn is now gone because people use it either for pedestrian safety or for driving. I've almost been hit there while walking Casey in a stroller multiple times, either because people are blocking the crosswalk or because they can't see due to the congestion in the drive-through and they will pull up onto that person's lawn and I have nowhere to go because they're actually driving onto the sidewalk. I witness near misses every single day at that crosswalk with kids going to and from the school. So not to try to influence the decision of council, but I think to Mr. Allen's point, if there's other areas that we're considering, I would strongly encourage us to make sure that we're thinking about the greatest safety risk to our community. I would just say that this is one of the largest risks, just from my perspective, obviously because I live there, but of course I want to respect the fact that it's up to the community really. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, council. I just have a couple of comments. And this, we all have our favorite areas of town for different reasons. And even going back to Councilor Raven's comment about whether we ought to invite the accessibility committee. And I'm just gonna remind us all that staff attend all of those committees and they hear the input, they hear us. And at the same time, we are tasking them, trying to figure out what are the most dire pieces every year. And it doesn't mean we can't direct, we have every right to make motions and direct staff to do things. But what I'm gonna suggest is that we either accept the report as is or give a little bit of time for staff to report back. Because it's a small budget, we have a lot of projects underway. And I think there was some wisdom in the comment on the maintaining a bit of a contingency. I would love more sidewalks and roads done every year as much as everyone else would. And there are some projects that of course I noticed as well. And Mr. Allen, Mr. Lawrence have heard my little emails over time as well, but it's like, unless there's one of these that we really want to make sure happens and we're willing to take something else off because we're going to need the contingency. I think I want to give that grace to staff. So either we let them come back to us at the next meeting if we want some changes. We direct them, we take our lumps, or we kind of trust that they've heard all of this and will do their very best to make the money go as far as it can. I'm gonna leave that, the motion's on the table, so we can either move on it or amend it. Councillor Ray, your hand.
No, I just wanted to say, I mean, looking at the contingency sounds large, but looking at the number of different projects that are on, it's probably not very large. So I appreciate the staff listened and, you know, sometimes in a small town, you get maybe a little more intimately involved in things than you might in larger towns, but yeah, so thanks for hearing me and I trust that, you know, staff's heard and they agree, then they'll do something. And if they don't agree, then I defer to staff's expertise.
Thanks, Councillor Ray. And I think we can, you know, staff have heard us. We all saw the extra money and tried to figure out what we could spend it on. And we're hearing that staff have already thought about what they might need to spend it on with the projects that are on the books. And so if as the projects go, they discover there's room for something, can always invite our input if they want at that point. But thanks, everyone. These are the projects that people see and really feel good about or feel left out, depending on which part of town they're in. So appreciate the conversation. And if there's nothing else, I'm gonna call the vote. All in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried. Okay, next up at 14.6 from Mr. Welsh, and it is on the RBA long-term development plans. That's a really long title too, like you're battling with the fire chief over the longest titles of these reports. I see you, chief. Okay, so we have the recommendation, someone will put it on the floor. Councillor Leonard, Councillor Raven, and discussion or questions? No. I'm gonna jump in then. I just highlighted a couple of things, so thanks for starters. And one question was just with the money that we've received from any of these large grants, I'm assuming that the interest that we receive then just goes, sort of adds to the particular reserve? Mr. Walsh?
That's correct, Chair. As you notice on attachment. Sorry, attachment 3, you'll see an actual in 2025, $210,650.
Can you just do a page for me?
Pardon?
Can you do a page? The attachments are big and the print is small.
I wish I had a paper copy, unfortunately. I don't think.
Okay.
You'll have our summary of RBA allocations from 2025 to 2028. And in the actual 2025 column, you'll see $210,650 was allocated to this reserve in 2025.
Okay, while I scramble for pages, I'll just say thank you. Okay, that's there. I'm sure it's. And then maybe you could just talk, whether it's you or Mr. Dewar, just talking a little bit about, you know, what I'm struggling with is allocation. So I've attended a couple of the RBA steering committee meetings and I'm trying to figure out what's our best plan through this. I understand we're going to have, you know, some extra help looking at how we do the asset management plan and wanting to make sure council sees that sort of long-term plan. We still have money unallocated. I think that's okay. We've heard different projects at the table and I think it does make sense to show an allocation, recognizing that the council of the time can always change projects. Staff may see that there are new priorities, different things happen, but to start thinking about a full allocation all the way through, which I wouldn't say, you know, that we have to throw ourselves in a sword over for exactly planning how to spend it. But I think there's some wisdom in showing a full allocation. So I'm not sure, Mr. Sure.
Yeah, with that, and I'll let Mr. Walsh build on anything I have to say, but we have heard from the Resource Benefits Alliance Steering Committee that there is a desire from the province to see funds fully allocated. We've identified opportunities to do such where those funds can still be utilized As mentioned previously, we anticipate some future challenges or future opportunities for spending those funds to arise as we move towards our asset management maturity. So we will be looking to do that. Our intention right now is to do that as we move towards the 2027 budget. If council so wanted, we could certainly look at moving it in this year's budget, but what we understand that would meet the needs of the funding.
Okay, thank you for that. I see Councilor, was there anything you wanted to add? Mr. Welsh, I can go there first.
I think, Mr. Chair, I think that was a good question brought up. It was one thing identified during this process. We didn't have a full RV allocation at the end of 2028. But as we noted through the budget process, this is a stabilization year due to like the changes over staffing and finance position being vacant. So this is something we're looking at hopefully we will get addressed during the 2026 year for this 2027 budget season to show this is fully allocated. Let's be determining projects and kind of planning for this throughout the year.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Ray.
Yeah, and I've advocated for doing that with the Northern Capital Planning Grant, which turned out to be not as important, but you know, I respect the RBA steering committee, but there can be some pushback to the province because we need flexibility because they change their mind about things all the time. What's important to them all of a sudden becomes important to us. We got to sometimes find money, sometimes they provide it. I think seeing the chief up on the screen there reminds me later on, we're going to see that they're failing us in something that they placed in our care. And if I know we can change allocations, but if we've got all the money allocated, it removes any kind of buffer against those kind of threats.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anyone else? Motion's on the table. Thanks for the work and all in favor. Any opposed? And that's carried. 14.7 from Chief DeVries, short title, followed by the response plan. Any discussion? We've got it for adoption. Actually, we have the motion first. Councilor Patterson, Councilor Ray. And did you have a question? Councilor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Question through to staff. If you're confident that this plan integrates the lessons that we learned from this past winter, more specifically, just mitigating that responsibility of downloading from the province that occurred this winter onto us. And maybe more specifically, do we have an idea of how BC Housing might utilize this document in the future? So for example, will it form their procurement and compliance policy?
Chief, sorry, I didn't quite see. Was that your hand up on the screen? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Through to Councilor Patterson. So the goal of this document is town related. So if further services are needed that any of the temporary winter shelter can't offer during extreme cold events, this document will allow us to get reimbursed from the province through getting a task number. So this is more so our backup plan should there not be enough beds during a cold weather event from local providers.
Thanks, Chief. Good, Councilor Patterson.
Yes, thank you, Chief.
Okay, and any other questions? I'm not seeing any and recognizing we did have a presentation at the last meeting. I'll just call the vote. All in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried. And thanks everyone for the amount of work. It was a lot of work going into that. And now at least we have that. So that's great news. And 14.8 again from Chief DeVries on the lack of funding. And let's just put that on the table. Councilor Raven, Councilor Elliott, and discussion. Chief, actually, Chief, did you want to add anything to this before I go to Councilor Raven? Yep, go ahead. Or were you saying you're good, or were you?
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to acknowledge that ever since I've been attending council meetings, Councilor Ray has said at some point the province has downloaded this on us and is going to start trying to make us pay for it. So I just want to acknowledge that Councilor Ray was correct. And
Love it. So I was sitting at the table once before when Councilor Ray had the opportunity to say, I told you so. So I don't want to give that to him again. But Councilor Ray, if you want to.
Actually, thank you, Chief DeVries. I'm gonna save that for the minister meeting. I did want to ask Chief DeVries though, has the amount actually been cut back, or is it just they gave an amount and they're not increasing it in response to the demands?
Chief,
So both, this year, our grant amounts, the total we could apply for. I believe last year for the same grant for ESS, we were able to apply for 150,000 and we're successful. And this year it was down to 120, and I believe that was 10,000 less per municipality. That's part of the Bulkley ESS program. And for the volunteer and composite program, it was $10,000 less this year as well already, than it had been previous years. And yeah, then on top of that, they said they were oversubscribed, and we were unsuccessful on any type of funding.
Thank you, and it's to the credit of the team, what a great service we have, and it would be, it places council in a difficult, I mean, I can say I told you so it was gonna happen, but it still leaves us in the position where we're maybe not able to give the support to the volunteers that have stepped up to make this program so successful. So I think I'm happy to even take the lead at the meeting, because it might be my last UBCM, and maybe I don't have to be as polite as I usually am.
okay, so just to move this along. So we're still gonna have an opportunity, we're still early in the game for discussion of how we wanna do UBCM meetings. So do we want to just make sure this is on the list when we get to that? Mr. Jordan?
Yeah, that would be the intention of the recommendations, just so that staff has that identified, so that we'll make sure that it's on the list as we move towards finalizing our lobbying list.
Okay, so this is the placeholder. Anything else from council? Mr. Patterson?
Thank you, worship. I recognize staff would likely have highlighted this for us, but of those two grants that weren't awarded to the municipality, are there any sort of immediate or emergent risks to the community by not having those? Like, so for example, in preparing for the upcoming wildfire season, or anything that you think that we should start to consider that we need to find funding for, or we just pause and wait and staff will come to us when they're ready?
Chief DeVries, I don't know if you wanted to comment on that. You have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, operationally, we have everything right now in our current budgets to be fully operational for all of 2026. Some of these projects were obviously of strategic importance, but nothing that will make us not be able to operate this year with our current budgets.
Thank you.
Councilor Raymond?
Just a bit of a comment. I remember last year at UBCM, I happened to have the opportunity to chat with the minister, and I just highlighted how well it was done regionally and how everyone's coming together, and they had commented that, you know, that seemed like a really good approach. So I do have to say that this is just extremely disappointing, because when so much hard work and effort has gone into it and then the rug gets pulled out, I mean, we kind of expected this to come, but I can say to Councilor Ray, I'll bring the pom-poms for when you want to have your rant.
Okay, I'm gonna call a vote. All in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried unanimously. Unless I forgot something when I was getting the agenda approved, but we'll get there. 15th, the report from Ms. Chandran on updating our options for regulating rescue mission, and this is here for information and discussion. Council. Yes, so the main purpose of this is to get some feedback for staff. So Councilor Patterson.
Thank you, worship. So just, I'm gonna focus on the comments that were made by staff on page 251 of 304. So this was that comparative analysis of some of the other communities across the province. And I'm gonna focus on this statement where staff say technically, given the highly flexible and lenient definition of institutional use, a proponent may claim the right to operate shelters from any zone that currently permit institutional use. So I'd really just be looking for this to potentially be added to the project list, recognizing we have a number of competing priorities from staff, just to look at what recommended options they have for council consideration to update or modernize the definition and use for shelters as other communities across the province have.
Thanks, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Ray.
Yeah, so after there's been discussion, if there's nothing that changes my original plan, I'll have a motion. But first of all, I want to thank staff. I asked for a simple thing. Or I had originally come to ask for a simple thing, and staff recognized that it was more complex than that if we wanted to maintain control over maybe what happens with this in our community. So I really appreciate this report. It's very thorough. And I think, you know, it really, that clarifying the institutional use, you know, it's not just a shelter. Like somebody could say that a safe injection site or what have you was also an institutional use. So I really support that part of it. We're clarifying it. And just for my everything under C next steps, I think I you know, I trust staff. Like my motion will be to basically do those things. And then if any of them are conflicting or whatever, then I know staff will figure that out as well. I want to give, you know, it was a very simple thing that I asked in the original motion, and I think that seeing how it came back, that I trust that if I make it simple again, that it will come back. Council, our staff has really heard what our concerns are, and this report goes a long way to allaying my concerns for sure.
Thanks, Councillor Ray. I just was, Mr. Dorr.
Yeah, and with that, I'd maybe invite Mr. Allen to just maybe speak to it following some of the council comments, just kind of staff perception of what may be the best more direction to move from here. Then staff will certainly research more and bring it back to council.
Mr. Allen.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. So staff have pretty well laid out what staff would recommend as next steps in section C on, well, it's page 4 of the report. So I think, and then there's some decision points that would need to be made within those points that are identified. But we do recommend some type of zoning bylaw amendments to clarify rescue mission and maybe modernize rescue mission to current day definitions of shelter versus emergency shelter versus temporary winter shelter, which seems to be what a lot of the other municipalities are using in their definitions and then in their permitted uses in the different zones. So we do definitely recognize that there are potential conflicting land uses that we've spoken to that in the report. We do feel that the downtown core is still likely the best location for the shelter use because of the proximity to all the support services that are available and needed for shelters. But how we go about permitting those, I think we've heard council in the past, last fall, that we need that public engagement piece to be part of the decision making. So that can be completed with site-specific zoning, for example, or even just straight temporary use permits. So those are just highlighting a couple of those decision points that will eventually need to be made.
Thanks, Mr. Allen. Okay, Councillor Ray, one more thing, then we'll go around.
Yeah, it's just a question. If I make a motion, a general motion to amend the zoning, considering the steps in that number C, is that vague enough to to have you bring those decision points to us, but to move forward.
Same nod. Okay, anyone else? People have comments? Councillor Patterson?
Thank you, your worship, just a procedural question, would it have to be referred to the project list, or no, it just goes without saying, it would be something that would be brought forward at a further committee level?
Yeah, I don't think you have to refer to the project list. It'll just be direction for staff or specific direction depending on which it goes. I just wanted to make I want a couple of questions of clarity for me before you make a motion. So I'm on the C next steps as well. And there's just one where I think, so the one that says apply site specific zoning. Is that just spot zone? Is that what that means? Strela?
Actually, not exactly. Spot zoning would be more like the next one down that utilize the CD zones. Comprehensive development zones are this equivalent to spot zoning. The site-specific zoning is, it's just identifying different properties that are within the zone and have special uses attached to them.
Can you just give me an example?
We do have one in the zoning bylaw right now. And it's to permit the short-term rental on the ground floor at 3876 Second Avenue. So that was a site-specific zoning. Spot zoning would refer to creating, like a brand new zone, C2A or something like that.
Okay, okay,
But that's what the CD zone accomplishes.
okay. And with the CD zone, I mean, we have two. If I got that right, we have the two properties beside down hall, those are the CD zone now.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, well, with that clarity, that was the one where I was a bit just fuzzy on what that actually meant. Then I think the steps outlined in that section C do work for me. I think, you know, in the best iteration of this, it means that when there's something proposed, we're aware of it in advance, and there's an opportunity for council to move down the path with the proponent and with any luck bring the community along on something. This is always going to be hard, and it doesn't mean that we don't have to do it. And I think what we saw last year was just that not knowing what's going on actually put us in the pinch point in a way that was not helpful, and that's not the fault of anyone here. And so we're trying to find a way so that when something is proposed, we're aware early on. We have an opportunity to review, and then if we think it's the best option, we're actually just marching with the proponent and all those others in the community. So I do appreciate this. So then going back to where Councillor Ray is, a way forward for me, and I'll leave it to Councillor Ray to make a motion. But if we were to get something back that considered the points outlined in section C, that seems right for me. That seems to work. So I'll stop now if there's anyone else, and otherwise I'll go back to Councillor Ray.
Yeah, I will move that council direct staff to proceed with the zoning bylaw amendment, considering all items in C above.
Thank you, and a seconder, Councillor Raven seconds. Any further discussion? Staff is clear, it's good. Okay. I just have one other question for clarity now that the motion's on the floor, and that just relates to a timeline. What's your anticipation, Mr. Allen, for when that would be able to come back, or Mr. Dewar, whoever's thought about it? Mr. Allen?
Yeah, thank you. I guess staff's initial thought on timing would be concurrent with the Heart and Hearth public engagement discussions. Either concurrently, or if the need arises for a zoning amendment out of that process, then this can dovetail into that. That was our initial thought.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Allen. And just under the rules that we have currently, if there were something that was proposed that doesn't, and this timeline doesn't fit, council always has the opportunity for a TUP. We can buy ourselves half a year or whatever that is. We can buy ourselves time for TUP. Okay. Did you want to say something?
I think Mr. L captured most of it, but yeah, the intention would be have this done prior to moving heavily into the summer period. And certainly that's one that we would like to align with the Heart to Heart process.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ray.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't my intention to really rush that into this. It doesn't need to be done properly, although it looks like it's been very well researched already. And, you know, council has been pretty clear with BC Housing that the Heart to Heart will move forward as long as the community is okay with the location and council is comfortable with it as well. So we have bought ourselves a little bit of communication there that the community does want input into this. So, you know, it would be great if it was in contention, but if things happen and, you know, Councillor Patterson does rightly say that there are other priorities and staff's working on. So, you know, rather get it done properly, because I feel like we do have a little bit of control over Heart to Heart, even though they could do it if they wanted to. But I really think that, you know, appreciate staff's timeline, but if it's difficult, then so be it.
Okay, motion's in front of us. Are you ready? All in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried. Thanks. And please extend our thanks as well to Ms. Chandran and those who helped with this. Thanks. And now we're up to 16.1 bylaws. This is the Parks and Open Spaces bylaw. Are you moving? Councillor Raven?
First reading.
Okay, move first reading, Councillor Raven seconds. All in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried.
Sorry, Your Worship, that would be myself. Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're opposed.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No,
Thanks
you're
for
okay.
that.
Yeah.
So passes with Councillor Patterson opposed. And second reading, Councillor Ray. Councillor Raven, discussion. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Worship. I'll just speak as per due process why I'm opposed. So just to be consistent, I've said this time and time again, the Parks and Open Spaces bylaw is, yes, clearly within our jurisdiction, but those provisions move far beyond the scope intended by the bylaw. An adequate shelter is a provincial responsibility, not municipality through Parks bylaw. And I believe that voting in favor furthers the downloading of that responsibility from the province onto the municipality without the resources to enforce that.
Thanks, Councillor Patterson. Councillor Ray.
Yeah, I think this recognizes that even though that's how it should be, the courts have decided that municipal land is where things should be. And unfortunately, we have even less, well, maybe fortunately, politically speaking, we have less control over the courts than we do over the provincial government. So sometimes you're dealt a hand, you don't like it, but you have to do the best you can with that.
Thanks, Councillor Ray. Councillor Elliott.
Just a quick comment. Thank you, Mayor. Initially, I thought about voting against it, but I think there's some processes in place now where we maybe see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. So I will support this bylaw and just keep it going until we see some more changes.
Thanks, Councillor Elliott. Yeah, I think, you know, it's, oh, did I miss someone? I saw your hand up. Did I miss you? Okay, I'll go to you next. Sorry, Councillor Ray. Just that as frustrating as things have been, I do see, Councillor Elliott called it the light at the end of the tunnel, but maybe I'll regret these words, but I think the province has been trying to find a way to support us, and I feel that that's there now in two streams. One is working with us at Heart to Heart. One is on the supportive and the shelter project. And I don't think those can be ignored. And I think I can be as frustrated as anyone over what the situation has been over the last few years. But I'm also going to acknowledge when we've been heard and when some help is coming our way. Doesn't work out, I'm happy to get on the bandwagon and being upset again, but for now, I want to work with the people that are trying to work with us. Councillor Raven.
Well, and just to kind of touch on the point that Councillor Ray made as well, it's also if we don't designate a space, then that leaves it kind of free for all. So it's that whole piece of, I'm not happy about it, but I would rather have a space that's designated where we know everything is rather than having it everywhere.
Thanks, Councillor Raven. Second reading, all in favor? Any opposed? And it carries with Councillor Patterson opposed. Third reading. Councillor Ray. Councillor Elliott. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Carries with Councillor Patterson opposed. Thanks, everyone. Okay, and this is where I had intended to bring a couple of items together, so my apologies, Ms. Smith. I was going to try to make the agenda simple. So we have 17.1, and then the first one on the 18s are connected. And now I think the only way is to vary the agenda, bring them together. So if it works for council, if we can just vary the agenda to bring 18.1 forward with 17.1. Councilor Ray, Councilor Raven, thank you, all in favor, any opposed, okay, they kind of go together. So there they are for discussion. So we've got the NCLJ letter and then the one from Dawson Creek on the motion, Councilor Ray.
I'll start us off with a motion, if that's all right. I'll move that council instructs staff to take steps necessary for us to become a co-sponsor of this resolution.
Thank you, sir. Seconder, Councilor Raven seconds.
That's the words.
You're good? Okay. Did anyone want to speak to that? Okay, Councilor Ray.
Just say, I think it was in the NCLGA presentation to the board when I was at the board for you, that mentioned that co-sponsorship helps quite a bit. So I'm glad to lend our name to this as well.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried unanimously. Okay, thank you. Then we're at the rest of the 18s. So it was next up was 18.2 and the letter from, I just must note, Mr. Malkinson, who was our corporate officer here once upon a time, now with Pooskoopi. So any of the 18s that council wanted to discuss? Councilor Ray?
Just a little bit of 18.2, and I appreciate that some of us saw as a fairly good presentation on the Gallatin decision at UBCM, and that you've attended as well, but just knowing this kind of points out how much confusion there is over you know, even we were hearing even different things at the presentation at UBCM. So it's just highlighting that the decision, whether you agree with it or not, has put some not doubt, but it's put kind of our whole system kind of on display, and nobody knows what's happening. And I think that's you know, I don't really have a very informed opinion one way or the other, but it does, it's causing angst in the local government circles for sure.
Thanks, Councilor Ray. Anyone else on the 18s? Okay. Then I'm going to slowly say, but I think we're ready for my whole motion, just in case I missed something. Okay. Motion to adjourn, Councilor Elliott, Councilor Raven, all in favor? It's always in favor, and we are adjourned, and it's 8:22. Thank you, everyone.